Peter O'Toole, the actor, said that the terrifying part about Hamlet is trying to explain it. And I think he was onto something with that. So I'm just going to make 2 points. I'll try to be as brief as I can, but we are talking about Hamlet after all. You never know. Okay, so my 2 points. First point is this. This whole issue of procrastination. Does Hamlet procrastinate or not? This seems to be the big issue in the play. I've heard that this is the issue since I was a teenager. Everybody has an opinion about this. Laurence Olivier, in his film, says that Hamlet is a man who can't make up his mind. And I was thinking about it, and I'm not so sure that Hamlet does procrastinate. And this is why I say that. I think that it's possible to interpret the play in such a way that Hamlet never has any more than circumstantial evidence on Claudius. I mean, the circumstantial evidence at times is overwhelming, but technically speaking, it's still circumstantial. He never has a written or a verbal confession from Claudius. He never has the goods on him. For example, what's the first possible circumstantial bit of evidence? Well, it's the ghost. Hamlet sees the ghost. The ghost tells Hamlet to avenge his father. But at the same time, Horatio suggests the possibility that the ghost may not really be his father at all. It might be a spirit, an evil spirit, tempting Hamlet to kill Claudius, and then be damned. Or perhaps the ghost is alluring Hamlet to the edge of a cliff to make him jump. Which makes sense. Nobody except Hamlet actually hears the ghost, the supposed ghost of his father, exhorting him to avenge his death at the hands of Claudius. Horatio doesn't hear it. It's only the ghost and Hamlet. So nobody can corroborate this. So the ghost is suspect. Number 2, this is probably the closest, most intense piece of circumstantial evidence we have in the play. It's when Hamlet devises his ruse. He has this play within a play where the actors mime a king being poisoned, and he wants to study Claudius's reaction to it. Of course, Claudius takes it very badly. He's very upset by it, and he leaves in the middle of the play. He rushes out. That is probably the closest we get to real incrimination of Claudius. But again, it's very, very powerful, but still circumstantial evidence. Now, the third thing, and which comes very closely after. At one point, one scene, I think it's Act 3, Scene 3, Claudius is by himself in his royal chambers, and he feels very guilty about having murdered Hamlet's father. So he has a monologue, and he says, well, maybe if I pray, I will be forgiven. Maybe, this can all be righted in some way. So he has this monologue in which he actually does confess that he killed Hamlet's father. He confesses it to us. However, Shakespeare arranges it. This is very, very interesting and crucial. Shakespeare arranges the scene so that Hamlet only enters and sees Claudius after Claudius has finished his monologue and is merely kneeling and praying. So Hamlet has heard we've heard it, but Hamlet has heard nothing of this. It would be interesting if Hamlet had heard Claudius's confession to see what his reaction would be. If he just drew his sword and immediately killed Claudius, well, we would know that he's not a procrastinator at all. It would also have ended the play at that point. There would be no Act 4 or Act 5. But Shakespeare purposely does not do that. He leaves everything hanging in the air. There's an air of uncertainty about it, just like there is in everything in the play. So when Hamlet walks in and sees Claudius silently praying, he says to us, well, this is a chance I have, but I'm not going to kill him, because if I kill him now while he's trying to purge himself of his sins, well, I might be sending Claudius to heaven. I might be doing him a favor, and I want to send him to hell. So let me think of another time to kill him, when he's whoring or drinking or doing some other vile, disgusting thing. Then I know he'll go to hell when I kill him. Now, again, we just don't know. Is Hamlet sincere when he says this? Or is Hamlet simply using that as a rationalization for continuing to procrastinate? We just don't know. Shakespeare is very tricky about that. And we also have to consider this. What would have happened if Hamlet had killed Claudius without having absolute positive proof that he murdered his father? What would have happened? Well, two things could have happened. Hamlet was a very popular fellow with the Danish people. Maybe the Danes would have simply said, "Way to go, Hamlet. We always hated Claudius. We're glad you killed him. Long live the king. Long live Hamlet." They could have said that. On the other hand, what could have happened is this. Hamlet just assassinated the head of the state, so he is now guilty of treason. If he was tried for treason in a court of law, the Danish court of law or parliament, or however they had it back then, well, what could Hamlet have said in his defense? I heard a ghost, I heard a voice. That would have made him just seem like a nut job. Could he have said, well, I was looking at Claudius when I had this play within a play, and I didn't like the expression on his face, and Claudius rushed out of the room upset. Well, that's also not proof positive. That's very subjective. I mean, who knows why Claudius ran out of the room, ran out of the chamber? Maybe he had a case of the runs. Who knows? That would not hold up in a court of law. So, from that perspective, also, Hamlet is opening himself up to simply being executed as an assassin. That's something else to consider. So it's possible. I'm not saying he didn't procrastinate, but it is possible that when you take this into account, that maybe Hamlet simply didn't kill Claudius for this very mundane reason. He didn't feel he had sufficient evidence, anything hard. He had only circumstantial evidence, and maybe he's waiting, protecting himself from a legal standpoint. It is possible. It's not a very sexy explanation like Freud's, where this great Oedipus complex that Hamlet is supposed to have, but it is something to be considered as well. Okay, second point I want to make is this. I believe that Hamlet is really a meditation on thinking and on the limitations of thought masquerading as a revenge play. Now, why do I say this? I say it because almost every single line of this play is either explicitly or implicitly speaks to this recurring theme of doubt and uncertainty, and the protean, chimerical, ever-shifting nature of thought. It's almost in every line of the play. I'm not exaggerating. Let me just give you a few examples of this. There are so many of them. You could pick them at random, actually. One, Claudius, not what he seems to be. So the theme that I'm talking about that I seem to pick up is that nothing is what it seems to be. Claudius is not what he seems to be. Hamlet's antic disposition. Is he mad? Is he not bad? He's not really mad, but he seems to be mad. And for those people who think that Hamlet is mad, I think that they're reading the play. They're not reading the play carefully enough, because Hamlet specifically says to Horatio in the beginning of the play, if I start acting strange and assume an antic disposition, don't let on, Horatio. So he says it. It's very specific. There can be no doubt about that. Okay. Next way that nothing seems to be what it really is. the actors in the play. Why did Shakespeare have a play within a play? Why did he do that? Well, think about it. What is an actor? An actor is somebody who assumes a role. And when you assume a role, you seem to be one person, but you're not. You're not that person. You're just playing a role. Whatever role the actor happens to play, he seems to be that person, but he's not that person. Again, the theme of seeming, and nothing is what it really is, what it really appears to be. How about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? They seem to be Hamlet's friend, but of course they're not. They're really spies. How about Ophelia's death? Is Ophelia's death really a suicide? It appears to be, but maybe it's not. Maybe Ophelia was accidentally drowned when she was on the banks of a river, the river or the lake, and she reached out to the bough of a tree to pick up some flowers, and she fell and drowned herself. We don't know. There's a great deal of doubt about that. How about Polonius, my favorite? The famous scene where Polonius is alone with Hamlet when Hamlet is assuming his antidisposition, and Hamlet says to Polonius, "Hey, see that cloud over there? Doesn't that cloud look like a whale, Polonius?" And Polonius, wanting to humor Hamlet, thinking he is out of his mind, says, "Oh yes, my lord, it's a whale." And then Hamlet says, "Well, no, not a whale. Doesn't it look like a weasel?" And of course, Hamlet is making a little joke here, because what he's saying is that Polonius is a weasel, which he is. And then Polonius just, humors him again and says, "Yes, my lord, it does look like a weasel, come to think of it." So again, why does Shakespeare do that? Why does he introduce this obvious suggestion that nothing is what it appears to be? Clouds assume shapes, different shapes, like a Rorschach test. And why do thoughts suddenly become new thoughts or revised thoughts, or one thought is not really that which we thought it was at all? This is very, very telling to me. Okay, does Hamlet love Ophelia? He says he does. Or is he just trying to get her into bed, to sleep with her? How about this? The to be or the not to be speech. This is a great one. What in essence is the to be or the not, the sentiment being expressed in that speech? Well, it's, suicide seems to be a good idea. I mean, to avoid the slings and arrows of life sounds great. Only what happens if we die and things are even worse in death than they were in life? So, seems to be okay. Maybe not such a good idea. Exact same sentiment being expressed. And of course, there's the ghost. The ghost seems to be the ghost of Hamlet's father, but is it, or is it an evil spirit? So after a while, with all of these implied or explicit references to the chimerical nature of thought or awareness or consciousness, I began to realize that this is the subtext of the play. This is what the play is really about, and why I say it's a meditation on thought masquerading as a revenge play. So what I pick up from this is that, and also, Hamlet says at one point in the play, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Exact same sentiment being expressed. So it seems to be that, man's predicament is that he is able to think, but that thinking or thought or consciousness, however you want to put it, is not a very reliable tool. This is the recurring theme for me throughout the entire play. And this is it. So Shakespeare and Hamlet seem to be suggesting that reality is like this blank canvas upon which we paint our own thoughts, which are by their very nature distorted, these subjective thoughts we have. Okay, so that's what I get from this. Now, is there a solution to this? I mean, man is supposed to be higher than the animals, right? He's supposed to have the faculty of reason, of thinking. So we're supposed to be above the animals. We're called Homo sapiens, the wise one, the wise man. But I get from this play that that Shakespeare has his doubts about that, just how wise we are, and just how much higher or more elevated we are than animals. So does Hamlet have a resolution to this this problem with thought, the ambivalence, the ambiguity of thought? Does Hamlet and Shakespeare have a solution to it of any sort? And I think that they do. It comes somewhere between Acts 4 and Acts 5 of the play. When Hamlet leaves, Hamlet is, as you remember, not banished, he's sent away by Claudius to England. He's to go on a voyage to England to lay low because he has killed Polonius. And on that voyage, as Harold Bloom says, Hamlet seems to undergo a sea change, literally. He seems to have some kind of a spiritual awakening or transformation. We don't know how it occurs, why it occurred, what brought it on. All we know is that when Hamlet returns to England, which he's not supposed to do, he's supposed to be executed in England. When Hamlet returns to Denmark, when Hamlet returns to Denmark, he's a changed man. He seems to be calmer. He doesn't seem to be as obsessed by thought, the nature of thought. He says two very, very telling things in Act 5, which are indicative of this spiritual transformation. The first thing he says is this. He says, there's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now yet, it will come. The readiness is all. In other words, he's saying it doesn't matter what I do. If I'm fated to die, then I'll die. And there's nothing that I can do about it. It's kind of a very fatalistic point of view. And he says something else very telling. He says, our indiscretion sometimes serves us well. When our deep plots do pall, in other words, when our plans and schemes blow up in our faces, when our deep plots do pall, that should teach us there's a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will. So, and this is quite true. This is the way the play turns out in the end. Hamlet spends the first 4 acts of the play thinking, obsessing, having different monologues, talking about the nature of man, the nature of the undiscovered country, and so on and so forth. But in the 5th act, which is, there are only 2 scenes in the 5th act, the shit hits the fan. Everything happens all at once. It's like bedlam. Claudius kills everybody. Everybody is dropping down dead. He poisons the drink that Hamlet is supposed to have. When he takes a break from dueling Laertes, and he also poisons the foils that Laertes is using. But somehow, Hamlet is poked by the poisoned foil, and then they switch foils, and then Laertes is poked by it, and Gertrude mistakenly drinks the cup, the poison cup, which was meant for Hamlet. Claudius says, no, Gertrude, don't do that. But Gertrude is dying. So they're all dying at once. Everything happens quickly. There's no thought involved. And Hamlet, very quickly, very instinctively, very decisively, kills Polonius at that point, which dovetails very nicely with this fatalistic idea that we should just be ready for whatever comes. And our plans, even if our plans fail, there is something which is guiding us, which is beyond that. So that's what I get from the 5th act. Hamlet seems to have become something of a fatalist. That seems to be his transformation, and he seems to see a part of existence which lies outside of human thought, outside of human deliberation. You can call it fate, call it God, call it divinity, but there is a force in the universe, Hamlet now seems to realize, which is much stronger than mere human thought, and which has the final say in our destinies, in what will happen to us. So that no matter how much we plot and we scheme, we always have to take into account that part of life which is unexpected. That's why he says, and the readiness is all. I mean, we all think we can't avoid doing it, but Hamlet, I guess, is saying there still always has to be that tiny part of our brain, at least, that realizes that things might turn out as we would like them to be, and we have to prepare for the unexpected. That's what I get. This is kind of how I felt about Hamlet when I read this about 50 years ago, and more or less, I kind of feel the same way about it now. Did I like reading Hamlet? Did I enjoy reading it? Yes, I did enjoy reading it. I read many of the passages out loud several times. As in an effort to really take in the beauty of the language. Nevertheless, I kind of found Hamlet to be enjoyable in the sense that a jigsaw, solving a jigsaw puzzle is enjoyable, or a crossword puzzle. It was kind of an intellectual challenge more than it was something that moved me emotionally. I personally found Macbeth much more moving than Hamlet. I found Macbeth's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day speech to be much more moving, charged with emotion, than Hamlet's to be or not to be speech. That's just me. I found it brilliant but cold. I'm not the kind of person that cries when he reads, literature. But I have to say, the closest I came to actually weeping when I was reading a book was when I read recently Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I came very close to it then. It was very, very moving. I did not, and Macbeth moved me too. I did not find myself feeling the same way about Hamlet. So that's it. I think I kept this around 30 minutes. If I did, I'll be very happy about it. Thanks a lot.